I say it's freedom or bust. Let me tell you the true story of the American dream. So I want to apologize in advance if this offends you. And actually, that's not true. I hope it pisses you off and makes you want to stop squandering your potential, because the truth is that you deserve more than where you are right now. You see, I spent most of my life with one foot weighted down with the obligations of approval and conformity, and the other to a rebellious rocket shooting for the stars. So needless to say, my heart is like an epic battleground, and I'm stretching the limits of my, flexibility. You see, I can't help but be me. And believe me, I have tried otherwise. I was a weird kid, but I didn't know that I was weird until one day in 5th grade, a boy at my bus stop told me, and I quote, "Natalie, you always act like an animal." And the truth is that he was probably right. But so began my typical childhood self-consciousness and approval-seeking behavior. Now, don't get me wrong, I was still weird, but I chose to share that side of myself only with my family members, who are just as gloriously strange as I am. And so I never believed in the American dream as it was sold. You know the cliche, go to school, get good grades, get into a good college, get a good job, loathe working, and waste your free time on TV and booze, and do this until you're 65, retire, live in poverty for 5 to 10 years, consuming even more TV and booze, and then die. So today, this glorious misappropriation of human potential would also include Facebook and YouTube, but not much else has changed since I was sold this idea when I was a child. And I always said, screw that. I would rather live in a cardboard box than accept the mediocre life that society told me that I should want. This is what I would preach from my soapbox when I was like 14, 15 years old. Because I had never met any adult who truly enjoyed what they did for a living. And I never observed a relationship that I would actually want to experience myself. Think about that. How sad. Yet, adults in society vehemently encourage me to submit to the inevitable suffering of adult life, unfulfilling relationships, and working my butt off to make someone else rich. Then they'd package it neatly with the eminent reward of a white picket fence, a dog named Fufu, and a BMW. But I knew the sugarcoating was BS, like a cat turd in a candy shell. I knew that there had to be a better way. Because the truth is, the status quo made me gag. Now, thank God I had parents who encouraged me to forge my own trail. Yet, even with the freedom to choose, I didn't know what else to do. So I took a year off after high school, and then I went to college for lack of any other idea. And I also went because I actually enjoy learning and expanding my mind. And also because my 1 year of full-time employment at Walmart was enough to make even vagrancy look appealing. Good times. So, long story short, into the proverbial box I dove with my nose plugged and my finger in the air. And 5 years later, I had finished 2.5 years of college. I worked in a marketing and design career that I never wanted. I owned a house in the suburbs, and I was in a marriage that was just as uninspiring as I had expected. Everything was just peachy, except it wasn't. I had submitted. I was doing a really darn good job living everyone else's dreams. I might have seemed okay on the outside, but I had become burnt out and dead inside. I felt exhausted and empty, like someone had drained my blood. At work, I would look at the carpet under my cubicle desk, aka voluntary prison, and dream of curling up in a ball under there and taking a nap. And when I would get home from work, I'd frantically prepare dinner and eat and clean, knowing that once I sat down, I wouldn't be able to get up again. By 7:30 at night, my young body was totally done for the day. And then one day, I stopped at a traffic light, and I thought to myself, I wonder how long this light is. Maybe there's enough time for me just to close my eyes for a minute. And then I noticed how strange it was that I thought that. And I looked around at all the cars around me, all of them filled with people twice my age, none of whom looked like they felt as terrible as I did. And so for the first time in my life, I realized that something wasn't right. And I went to the doctor, and I had her do every test imaginable. And yet they all came back showing I was healthy. Right. So eventually my doctor labeled me with chronic fatigue syndrome, which I later learned ultimately is just a cover up for I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. So I started eating a natural, balanced, healthy diet, and I improved a little. And I started sleeping more, which made a little bit of a difference, but it wasn't that much of a difference. And then one morning, my alarm went off, and it jolted me into a fit of dread. And I hit the snooze button, and I observed myself thinking this. I was thinking to myself, if I had to kill someone in order to never have to wake up to this damn thing again, I think I might actually do it. And so then I was like, holy crap, did I just think that? And a few weeks later, I sat in my cell at 1 p.m, and I was lamenting the fact that even though I was done my work for the day, because I had work ethic like a rabid beaver, that I still had to keep my butt planted in that chair for another 4 hours because, well, that's just the stupid corporate world we live in. So at that moment, I felt like I was either going to cry or throw up or scream or stab someone. And I knew that I had to get out of there. And so I told my boss that I was sick and that I needed to leave. I got in the car and I just started driving. Not home, just anywhere other than this. And so I ended up 45 minutes away at a state park. I drove in and I took a turn down a road that I'd never been on before, and I parked my car and I just started walking. And I walked until the sun glistened on a small swampy pond, and it caught my eye. And so I walked towards it and I sank into the grass on the bank and I cried. I cried because I sucked at life. I just couldn't stuff myself into that box no matter how hard I tried. I cried because I knew that the rat race was slowly killing me. I cried because I shamed myself into accepting my life with the justification that other people would die to have what I had. I should like it, but the truth was that I didn't, and I hated myself for that. But at that moment, I knew what I had to do, but it scared the crap out of me. That day, I made a decision to be free. I made a decision to stop living everyone else's dream. I made a decision to be motivated by my own laziness. I could work my butt off for myself and create the freedom my heart longed for. I decided to stop shoulding on myself, and I banished the word should from my vocabulary. And from that day forward, anytime I was told or I thought to myself that I should do something, I've seen it as a signal for me to immediately and forcibly do the opposite. I was no longer taking advice from people on a treadmill going nowhere. And I finally embraced that the American dream wasn't my dream. And so I started to let go. And I said goodbye to my very last employer at the age of 24. And I started my own graphic design and marketing company. And soon after, I decided to go back to school full-time. And I slowly began taking control of my life. And I also embarked on a psychological revolution of ravenously consuming self-help and spiritual books. And during my soul searching, I discovered that my purpose was to help others live their potential and fulfill their purpose. And when I graduated, I opened a nonprofit teens coaching center. And it was feeling a bit more like myself. And my fatigue had improved, but the truth is that I still had this deep ache inside, like a hungry beast devouring me from within. And of course, I quickly stuffed it down and repressed it, just like all of my deepest desires. Yay. So through my new business venture, working with teenagers and their families, my mind expanded. Observing them forced me to see that there were other ways to live. Looking deeply into the intimate lives of others was a mirror in which I could see my own reflection, showing me how much of my life still wasn't really mine. And one day, as I facilitated an exercise called If You Really Knew Me, that's designed to help families express their individual truths, I saw a young teenage girl open up to her family. She had been assigned to my program due to property crimes and self-injuring behaviors. And her mother and her little brother embraced her with deep reverence and tears of understanding as she bared her soul and told the truth of the torment of her inner world. What an honor to witness such love, such vulnerability, such power in revealing her truth. And I had an epiphany that day that there was no turning back from. I had to be me authentically. After so long with my true self hiding in the shadows, I wasn't even sure who I was, but I was 100% sure who I wasn't. And within a 3-month period, I totally wiped out everything in my life. I stepped down from my nonprofit. I left my empty marriage. I sold my house, and I even got rid of my dog. Again, I made a decision to be free, to finally follow through on the promise that I had made to myself to stop living everyone else's dreams. I made the decision to stop trading my magnificent life for comfort and security. I made a decision to stop settling for less than all that I am. And although there were moments in which I was tempted to retreat back into the darkness of repression and denial, I clung firmly to my deep-seated desire to live authentically. And as soon as I released all of which no longer served me, and I let go of the identity that I had created around everyone else, the most amazing and perfectly aligned people and circumstances just magically appeared in my life. I found my true calling as an entrepreneur, as an empowerment life coach, speaker, and educator. And as if by magic, my fatigue had lifted. And it turns out, after all, that chronic fatigue syndrome was actually more like depression manifesting itself in my body. Go figure. So today, I am authentically, totally, and emphatically me. I own it. I don't apologize. I'm living the American dream. And you may be thinking, wait, what? Didn't you say that you hated the American dream? Well, let me explain. You see, I've come to understand that somewhere along the line, society's idea of what the American dream is got wildly off track. The American dream isn't about the cliche of the picket fences or the reality of voluntary slavery. It never was. It's always been about the American spirit. It's about the dominion of choice. The American spirit was demonstrated in the courage of the immigrants who came to America with a few dollars in their pockets and the hunger that pushed them to become America's best small businessmen and businesswomen. The American spirit was carried in the hearts of the pioneers who picked up everything they owned and left behind everything they knew to head west in search of a better life. And today, the American spirit is seen in the young mother who puts herself through college, in the woman executive who never took no for an answer. It's seen in the impoverished youth busting his butt, staying after class to get help from his teacher and working a job to save money so he can go to college. It's seen in the teens who voluntarily turn off the TV and the video games and their phones and social media because they know that the dreams that ache in their hearts can't be found behind a screen. They know that their life is worth so much more than that. It's about having the freedom to choose to turn determination, risk, courage, blood, sweat, and tears into a bold life with limitless possibilities. The American spirit is about freedom or bust. Live your potential or die trying. And yep, that's me. That's my life's mission. Maybe I'm not so weird after all. Maybe I just heard the call of the American spirit.